Here are the solutions to a few of the problems from section 1.3 worksheet. Make sure when you work these problems, if you don't just copy down my work, look at my work, pause the recording, then you try to do it yourself. For number 3, we need to do the distributive property. Make sure that you distribute the negative, and when you distribute the negative, it changes the sign of everything in that parentheses. Next step is to combine like terms. We're going to combine the negative x and the negative 2x to get negative 3x. Then we need to get the x's on one side. You can either choose to get the x's on the left side or the right side. It really doesn't matter. I'm used to always getting it on the left side, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. Then I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And we get negative x is equal to 0. There is no such thing as negative x is equal to 0, so x is just equal to 0. Number 5, there is a fraction, but there's only one fraction in front of the x, so it's easier in this problem not to clear your fractions first. So I am going to get 1/2 x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides. To get 1/2 x is equal to negative 10. Then I am going to take the reciprocal of 1/2. It's whatever if you're multiplying a fraction times the x, to get rid of that 1/2, you want to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2 over 1, or you could just say 2. So multiply both sides by 2, and you get x is equal to negative 20. Now on number 6, because there is a fraction, there is a fraction in front of the x. But if you will notice, there is another x on the other side. So kind of compare number 5 and number 6. Do you see the difference? In this case, it would be better to clear your fraction. So what I am going to do, I'm going to rewrite this and put each term have a fraction. So in other words, I'm going to put 2/3 x minus 1 over 1 is equal to x over 1 plus 7 over 1. So you have to turn each term into a fraction. Now, I am going to multiply each term by the least common denominator. The least common denominator of 3, 1, 1, and 1 is 3. So I am going to multiply both sides by 3, or each term by 3. That's what I did in green. Then I am going to cross reduce. 3 goes in 3 one time, so 1 times 2x is 2x. In the second term, right here, there is nothing to cross reduce, so I'm just going to multiply negative 3 times 1 and get negative 3. The next term, there is nothing to cancel or cross reduce, so I just get 3x plus 21. Now in this case, if I subtracted the 3x, I'm going to get a negative x. And I know I don't really want to have a negative, so I am going to subtract 2x on both sides. And then subtract 21. Okay, now I'm not going to work this entire problem, but I'm going to at least get you started on number 8. Notice there's fractions. I cannot stress this to you enough that when you have fractions in an equation, you must clear your fractions by multiplying each term by the least common denominator. Let me repeat myself. When you have fractions with an equation, you must clear your fractions by multiplying each term by the least common denominator. You might want to write that down if you haven't already from your notes. So what is my least common denominator? First, I'm going to put the 4 over 1, and I'm going to put the 6 over 1. What is your least common denominator from all the denominators? Would be 6. So I'm going to multiply each term by 6. Now what you're doing, in effect, let me go to the side. That's really what you're doing, is you are multiplying 6 over 1 times 1/2 x. That, in effect, what you're doing. You're going to cross reduce. So that is what you're doing in each term, and you get 3x. The second term, there is nothing to cancel out because 1 is in the denominator, so we're just going to multiply 6 times 4 and get 24. On the other side of the equal sign, I'm going to cross reduce. So again, this is really what we're doing. 2/3 x times 6 over 1. And we're going to cross reduce. 3 goes into 6 2 times. And then 2 times 2x is 4x. The last term, there is nothing to cross reduce, so we're just going to multiply 6 times 6 and get 36. And then you can finish solving this. Okay, now number 9 is a little different from the fractions. In this case, I wouldn't clear your fractions because the only fraction is the fraction in front of the parentheses. So it's better to do the distributive property. So I'm going to multiply 2/3 times 6c. And basically, you can go to the side and multiply. And again, when you're multiplying, you're cross-reducing. And you get 4c. So that is the answer for when you do the distributive property. Now we're going to multiply 2/3 times negative 18. So if you need to go to the side and write it out and cross-reduce, that's fine. If you can do it without going to the side, that's fine too. Now we're going to multiply the 3/4 times the second parentheses. So again, if you need to go to the side and do some little side work, that's fine. 3/4 times 8c over 1. So I want you to finish this problem. Okay, let's look at number 10. I want you to turn off the recording and you try to do this one yourself and then turn it on and see if you get the same answer. Okay, we're going to multiply each term by 4. And let's see what we get. And then you can finish this equation, solving this equation by yourself. Okay, literal equations are a little bit more complicated. They're all a little different. So you have to, these problems are just practice, practice, practice. Work these problems multiple times. It will click, but you're also going to need this for your physics class. They do literal equations a lot in physics. So in this equation, we're solving for w. Well, w is inside the parentheses, so we've got to clear our parentheses by doing the distributive property. So when we multiply 2 times everything in the parentheses, we get a is equal to 2l. Notice I did the cursive L, so it doesn't look like a 1, plus 2w. My goal is to get the 2w by itself, so I've got to get rid of the 2l. I need to move it on the other side, so I'm going to subtract it. So I get a minus 2l is equal to 2w. Now I need to get rid of the 2, so I'm going to divide by 2. And I have to divide both sides by 2. Well, notice on the left side, how many terms do I have? I have 2 terms. You have 2 options here. You could either divide the whole thing by 2, just do it one time, and you get a minus 2l all over 2 is equal to w. Or, because it's 2 terms, you could divide each term by 2. And when you do that, then you can simplify each term. The first term, you can't do anything with the a over 2, so it's just a over 2. But look at the second term. The 2's cancel out, so you just get l. So either answer will work. Okay, problem 15. We're solving for a. Well, notice, look at this problem very carefully. It is a proportion. A proportion is a fraction equal to another fraction. Proportions are so easy, but so many people don't notice that it's a proportion. So you need to make sure you notice that. So we're going to cross multiply with proportions. So it doesn't really matter which one you do first. I'm going to multiply the left to right. So that's 2a is equal to b times the numerator, a plus b. You could go straight to doing the distributive property. And when you multiply variables, you multiply alphabetically. So that's AB plus B squared. Now my goal is to solve for A. So I need to get my A's together on the same side. So I'm going to move the AB on the left side. So to move it, I am going to subtract it. So it's going to be 2A minus AB is equal to B squared. Now I have a common factor of A, so I'm going to pull out the A. I'm going to pull out my GCF of A, and I get 2 minus B. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2 minus B. And my answer is A equals B squared over 2 minus B. Okay, 16. I'm solving for H, but I've got that fraction 1/2 in front of that H. Anytime you have a fraction, try to get rid of that fraction first. Again, I cannot stress that to you enough. Make sure you get rid of the fraction first. To get rid of the fraction, we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. It's 2 over 1, or we can just say 2. So we get 2A is equal to H times B1 plus B2. Now we've got to get rid of the H, so we're going to divide both sides by H. Excuse me, we're solving for H, so we've got to get rid of the parentheses. Okay, look at 17. 17 is just like 16, except for we're solving for B sub 1. We still have to get rid of the fraction first. So what are we going to do to get rid of the fraction first? We're going to multiply both sides by 2. Then we get 2A is equal to H times B1 plus B2. Now we're solving for B sub 1. So we've got to get inside that parentheses. To get inside that parentheses, we have to get rid of the H. What is the H doing to the parentheses? It's multiplying, so what do we do to get rid of it? We divide. Okay, now we're solving for B sub 1, so we're going to subtract both sides by B sub 2. Now notice, that is a fraction right here, minus B sub 2. So don't try to put the B sub 2 up with the 2A. We have to subtract it from that whole fraction. So it's 2A over H minus B sub 2. Make sure that you do not put the B sub 2 up in the numerator with the 2A. If you do, it will be wrong. Okay, let's look at 18. We have to solve for Y. So my goal is to get that fraction by itself. So let's get rid of the A. So we're going to add A on both sides. And you could have done B plus A or A plus B. I always like to do it alphabetically. We've got to get rid of that Z, so we're going to multiply both sides by Z. So we get X plus Y is equal to, you can either keep the Z in front of the parentheses, or you could distribute it out. Notice that when I multiplied, I didn't do ZA, I did AZ, because when you multiply variables, you multiply them alphabetically. And then we want to subtract X on both sides. Okay, don't just copy my work down. Make sure that you rework all of these problems by yourself. You will have a homework quiz on this worksheet next class period.